As women, we are almost taught to diet at a very young age. I remember being like 13, somewhere around there, when I went on my first diet. I was constantly hearing my mother and my grandmother talk about diets, and everything back in the day was about calorie counting. We never even thought about macronutrients like protein, carbs, and fats. We didn't think about the quality of the food. Everything was calories in and out. We might throw in some exercise. Women weren't really strength training at the time. It was all about the cardio. But I think we can fall into a trap where we become lifelong dieters. It becomes a hobby where we go in and out of diets. And as women, we're not understanding what this is doing to our metabolism in the long term, and particularly when we hit midlife, perimenopause, the menopausal years. That doesn't work so well. The eat less and exercise more will only take us so far. So I have a treat for you today. I have a special guest. Nagina Abdullah is the founder of Masala Body, a weight loss website and company that has helped 1,500 plus women in midlife to boost their metabolism, especially when they realize that what worked before isn't working anymore. Real common in midlife. Her weight loss programs are based on nutritional and behavioral science, which I love, focus on natural formulas to add, combine, and time metabolism boosting foods and spices to reduce belly fat, another big problem in midlife, and to reduce this overall weight gain. Nagina personally lost 40 pounds herself after she had tried every single diet under the sun. And following her success, she started Masala Body to help women who battle midlife, weight gain, and lose weight without dieting, but by boosting their metabolism. She holds a degree in molecular and cellular biology from UC Berkeley and has been featured as a weight loss expert on sites such as health.com, Business Insider, HuffPost, People, Fox News, and so much more. Nagina, welcome to the show.
Hi, Carol. Thank you so much for having me.
We were having such a lovely conversation off camera before we hit record, and I'm really excited to unpack some of this with you because I really think we're on the same page, especially like, okay, calories, yes, we know we can't defy the laws of thermodynamics necessarily, but calories aren't the only thing involved in weight loss. Do you want to speak into this a little bit, Nagina?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, we've all heard about calories in, calories out. We need to move more, eat less, exercise more. But what happens when that doesn't work anymore? When we're eating so little and we may or may not be exercising depending on who you are, but you're just stuck. Now, calorie restriction and calorie counting, I mean, it has its place. There was a time even when we could see results from that, and and we would see our bodies changing. But the question is, was it really sustainable even back when it worked? But the thing that happens in midlife is that so many women are not eating enough. And we're eating just enough really to survive. And there's no way that our bodies can actually burn fat when we're just taking in what we have, and we don't know when the next meal is coming. And so what happens in midlife is that when you don't actually eat enough, your metabolism slows. When you skip portions of your day, or you decide not to eat, and then you maybe later on in the day start binge eating or eating large quantities all at once, that's slowing our metabolism. So really looking at calories is very limited. Another approach is actually to look at our blood sugar balance and to make sure that we're keeping our blood sugar stable throughout the day and eating enough to sustain our bodies so that now our bodies are efficient and it can burn fat. And so there's actually a lot of foods that we can add. There's some ways, some principles that we can use to combine our foods that make this really simple and easy. And what we get at the end of the day is a lifestyle that's healthy. And we no longer even have to think about dieting. And that's really what will solve the problem forever.
Yeah, do you think in the beginning it's good if women have an idea of where their calories and macronutrients lie, their protein, carbs, and fats? Or do you have more of an approach of, okay, let's look at portions and how we're structuring the plate at each meal?
So it depends for each person where they're starting at. Like if you're someone that already looks at your calories, your macronutrients, like you track in a tracker, it's great if to start there, because it's a great auditing tool of seeing, okay, what am I doing now? And then we can easily see, well, usually it's that we need to increase protein, or and that we need to look at the quality of your carbs. Like also looking at the types of food you're eating is also helpful. So if you're already there and you're already tracking it, it can definitely serve as a helpful starting point. But it's not only about the numbers, it is about the quality of foods and what you're eating, that they should be very nutrient dense and more often real foods than not. But if you're somebody that doesn't track that, which many women do not, or maybe you did it in the past and it was very stressful for you and you just don't want to live like that, that's totally fine too, because you can start learning principles about the types of foods that you want to have at each meal and start using some guidelines to understand what you should be adding versus only focusing on taking out. And once you start adding the right foods, you're going to no longer have cravings as much as you did before for those unhealthier foods. Like, for example, sugar cravings will start to go away when you start adding food. So, it really depends where you're starting from. This is very personalized on someone's journey and where they're at. And it's all about starting like where you are right now, because you can get to that place. It's just what do you want to do and how do you feel comfortable in doing it?
I love you've said several times adding, because we always think of diets as taking away, taking things away, and our little window of, or, amount that we can eat getting smaller and smaller, and it has to be these foods. And I love the idea of let's add things in that nourishes our body as opposed to just thinking about taking things away. And I love the emphasis on the blood sugar levels, because I think women are starting to wake up to this, but for a long time they would just think, well, I'm having problems losing weight because I'm getting older, or it's just because of my hormones. And in reality, I mean, we hit that perimenopausal midlife kind of window. Blood sugar can become a roller coaster. It can become a problem. Insulin resistance can become a problem.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. And that's, it's very common that we get very more insulin resistant in midlife. So what that, meaning if you were eating carbs in your 30s or maybe your early 40s even, and you were eating desserts, your body was able to process that and like break it down and get rid of it and not store it as fat. But our bodies start becoming so much more sensitive, and we can feel this. Like we know that this is happening because sometimes you could eat one piece of pizza and all of a sudden you're bloated for 3 days, and sometimes the weight goes off, sometimes it doesn't go off. The same often happens with wine. What we could easily drink a few glasses of wine, and now even one glass of wine will cause us to feel different, cause bloating, and in some cases, if you're stacking all these different sugars on, you will see that weight gain happening. And that's because of our insulin resistance that is starting to increase as we get into midlife. Our bodies are changing. They're not the same exact bodies as they were before. And that's important to just note. We're not the same people, but we can still learn the strategies to be our most fit selves, as and you can definitely tell that story too.
Oh yeah, it's about making some shifts. And what I found is there were shifts I made post menopause, when I turned 50-ish, and then I needed to shift again in my 60s. I'm like, what is going on here? I know it's it's not hormonal fluctuations anymore, and I'm on HRT, but I had to make some adjustments. Like I had to really increase my daily movement. That was like this thing that it's like, oh my goodness, if I don't move, I'm going to have an issue. I'm going to have an issue with blood glucose, with insulin resistance, with maintaining a healthy weight. So you make those pivots all the way through. Now talk to me a little bit about sugar, because oh my goodness, That is such, I don't want to say culprit. I don't want to, do the labeling of foods, but I find that to be something that it's hidden. Women are not always realizing where sugar is coming from. Maybe it's coming from refined carbohydrates, and they're saying, "Well, I don't eat sweets," but okay, those bagels spiked your blood sugar. What is your viewpoint on sugar, managing sugar? How do you deal with your clients with this issue?
So yeah, so understanding where sugar is hiding is one of the biggest educational areas that we could get better at, because once we learn that, you will just feel like such a relief and such a freedom, because there's things that are called healthy foods that are actually causing us to gain fat as a result of the sugar that's in it. And so that's, going back to what you had asked originally, looking at calories, when you're looking at a label, like the first thing I look at is how much sugar is in that, because we
Mhm.
need calories. We have to have a certain amount of calories over the course of the day. So that's not bad to have calories. We don't want to try to look at 0 or 25 calorie foods all the time. We actually need calories, but how much sugar is in this food? Because that sugar is going to create that glycemic spike, or that blood sugar spike. And what's happening when you have sugar in your bloodstream, insulin is released, and then it's trying to calm your blood sugar, bring it back down to normal levels. So it's taking the blood sugar out of the blood and storing it as fat. So that is why we don't want to have foods that are spiking our blood sugar. And so the thing about this though is I have an approach that's not a typical approach, but it actually works almost every single time. And that is, you don't have to decrease sugar out of your diet by trying to decrease sugar. You actually don't have to tell yourself, I'm not going to eat that chocolate cake. I'm not going to eat that croissant. Because guess what happens? There's so many studies that show us that whenever we restrict food, all we think about is that food that we're restricting. And, I've been in this situation so many times before where I was thinking, oh my God, I want to lose weight. I'm not going to eat chocolate. I'm not going to eat pizza. And when I'm sitting around, all I could do was think about chocolate and pizza. So instead, a much more constructive and actually a much more successful way is to start adding foods to your diet that don't create hunger anymore, so that you're not feeling hungry. And here is something that is not commonly known. When we're feeling those sugar cravings, it's usually because we haven't eaten enough, and our body is actually crying out not for sugar but for protein. Our body is actually aching for protein, but it feels like it wants sugar. And so the reason that this is happening is because we didn't feed ourselves soon enough. We waited to be hungry, and now we're losing control over what we're eating, because we are waiting to where those temptations are taking over. So to really get over sugar, it's to actually feed ourselves with the right amount of protein, because protein is very satiating. It digests more slowly. It's also the key food that's boosting our metabolism. And we're just going to feel like good. We're not going to want any more, of this. And what I've seen is that if somebody has temptations, like for example, they're at work and someone's bringing in donuts, or someone brings over cookies, or somebody has foods because of their spouse or children or grandchildren that are at their house. If they take care of themselves and they add protein to their breakfast, and when I say add protein, I mean add 30 grams or more of protein at breakfast, and then also have some really great high fiber, low sugar fruit on the side, then if somebody brings that around before lunch, they actually don't even want it. It's like that almost seems unreal until it happens, where you could seem so satiated and you just feel fine that you look at the donut or the cookie, something that would have tempted you, and you just decide, well, maybe I'll have a little bit later, but I don't feel like having it right now, because you feel so good and you're not hungry. And so that's the key about sugar, is that so much of sugar and sugar cravings can be actually solved. Like our sugar cravings can actually disappear when we learn to eat in the right way and we learn to add foods and do that proactively before we feel hungry, because otherwise those sugar cravings are going to get out of control. And when you can figure that out, which is actually not hard, we're talking about a lot of the strategies today. When you can start to learn to add the right foods, you're going to find that your sugar cravings start to disappear. You're going to start to see that you feel energy, that you feel an even energy all day. You're not going up and down in how you're feeling. And if you're consistent, even for 2 to 3 days, you will watch your weight go down on the scale and you will watch some of your measurements shrinking, because that's how powerful it is to get off of sugar. And so if you can prioritize this, it is going to have a major part of boosting your metabolism, and you're going to feel really good and you won't feel hungry along the way.
Mm. That's really true. I know when I first started my journey, and we were talking, off camera for a bit, and I started with doing a bodybuilding show because I really wanted to get in the best shape of my life in my 50s. And when I gave up that sugar, I gave it up cold turkey. I really didn't have any kind of guidance. It's just like, here's your meal plan and you can't have those other foods anymore. And I remember just being absolutely obsessed with getting something sweet, like trying to find some type of herbal tea or something to get rid of those cravings. So I wouldn't recommend doing it the way I necessarily did, but I will say this, I can walk into a local bakery here with my brothers to have lunch, and I am not tempted by what's in the cake. I don't even smell it. It's like white noise in the background because I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to order my omelet or whatever I'm going to order. But it's getting past that point. You don't want to white knuckle it. So how do you get clients past that point? Like, okay, let's say they really got a sweet tooth like what I did. I mean, I was eating ice cream every single night. How do you say, fix a high protein snack? Mentally, how do you prepare them for this shift?
Yes, that's such a great question, because it can feel very daunting when you're here, when you're starting. But I want to share one of the first things that I did, because I actually felt like I was born with sugar cravings. I would label myself like that. I would say I am just somebody that was born with sugar cravings, and I have to learn to deal with them, and other people don't have to learn as much as I do. It's harder for me. And I would actually say that because my sugar cravings were so strong, I actually thought about these pastries and chocolates like quite a bit. And so one of the things that I did was, when I wanted to lose weight, I started my journey, but I was really looking at getting off of dieting as I started this journey, because it was after I tried every diet and none of that had worked for a long time. And so I really enjoyed my coffee in the morning, where I like to put artificial sweetener. I like to put a French vanilla creamer. And it was like the highlight of my morning. It was such a part of my morning that I actually felt, when I heard about and started learning about sugar and the effects on weight, I started thinking, well, it's not even worth it. Like, I don't even think losing weight is even worth it if I have to give up my sweet coffee. And so what I learned is there is a hack that is really helpful. And in the beginning, as you're getting off of sugar, as you're making this transition, sometimes you just need some substitutes to help you out as you are coming off of it. And so I learned about the benefits of cinnamon. And cinnamon is something that you can just sprinkle into your coffee, and or sprinkle it onto your berries or into a smoothie. And what happens is that when you sprinkle it into any of those things, it actually brings down the sugar of what you're eating. It lowers our blood sugar. It's anti-sugar, which is amazing. It doesn't cause a spike in insulin, so it's not creating fat storage, but it's actually helping us even out our blood sugar. And then we're also getting some sweetness from the taste, but it's like a natural sweetness. So it's helping us to curb our sugar cravings. So I started adding more cinnamon, and I started lowering the amount of creamer I had. I started lowering the amount of artificial sweetener I had, because artificial sweetener also, though it doesn't spike our insulin, it's creating an addiction, a mental addiction to sweetness. And so our body's like looking for sweetness when we're using artificial sweeteners. But cinnamon is different. It's very natural. It's a different flavor, and it's not creating that insulin spike. And so I started evolving to a point where I started drinking my coffee with only cinnamon in it. And sometimes I would put a little bit of almond milk in it if I wanted a little bit of creaminess. As we're starting to move into this direction, number one, using cinnamon is really great because it's a nice replacement for sugar that doesn't spike it. Second of all, using some small swaps. So if you are someone that craves, for example, ice cream at night, or something else sweet, replacing it with something that's similar is Greek yogurt. So if you have Greek yogurt and you want to put some berries into there and then sprinkle some cinnamon onto that, you're going to still get that creamy effect. It's still going to feel sweet, but it's a healthier sweet. It's not as much sugar in any way. And it also has protein in it, which is helping to balance your blood sugar. It's helping to bring down your sugar levels because protein also acts like that. It helps to stabilize our blood sugar. So Greek yogurt is a really excellent way to do that. So looking at some of these swaps is really helpful. And then, thirdly, preempting and just really starting with breakfast. Making sure you get 30 grams of protein in your breakfast is the number one way my clients are saying that they're getting off of sugar and they're boosting their metabolism and they're starting to lose weight and create that lifestyle shift. And so 30 grams of protein, what that means at breakfast is something like 2 eggs with a cup of egg whites, if you like to, then making a scramble. Now, 2 eggs, each egg is only 6 grams of protein. And 2 eggs is very common to eat in the morning, but it's only 12 grams of protein. And if you only have that and you don't have any additional protein, your body is going to crave carbs and it's going to crave sugar, whether it's right away or whether it's in a couple hours from then. So in order to avoid that, it's about eating the right foods, eating more. I actually have a mantra called I can eat more protein now so that you avoid sugar cravings later. And so adding that half cup of egg white or a cup of egg whites is great. You can also do 2 eggs and Greek yogurt. There's Greek yogurts that are 20 grams of protein. So you can do 20 grams in the Greek yogurt, 12 grams in the eggs. You can also do a protein shake. So you have 30 grams of protein in your protein powder, and then you add, a non-dairy milk. You can have some low sugar fruit like strawberries. You can add some flaxseed to add fiber, some spinach, and you can also add a little bit of mint, which is another thing that helps us with sugar cravings. Mint, the scent of it actually helps us avoid overeating and helps us not crave sugar. So it's just having that in the morning. So these little things really add up, but it's also about making sure that you're having enough protein, but also putting some of these flavors, these herbs, these spices, they help to make it more pleasurable. And they also have additional benefits for getting off of sugar and lowering our blood sugar. So, start with breakfast. Don't feel like you have to do this all the time or you have to totally change your life. Start with one meal and then try to make some swaps along the day as you can. And you're going to notice, especially when you're getting enough of that healthy food in, the sugar starts to subside and you feel so in control of your body. It's very freeing to feel like that.
Mhm. I really love what you're saying here, starting, at least starting the day or starting with the first meal, whether we eat, breakfast a little later in the morning or earlier in the morning, and setting yourself up for success. Because I think I look back on what I would do, and I would have things like I was a runner. So I would head out the door with like a granola bar or a banana and a granola bar and no protein, just all carbohydrates and sugar. And that's what I did. And then, of course, you burn through that, you're hungry. And even the eggs, it's not a lot of protein. Eggs assimilate and digest really fast. And then there you are, hungry an hour later. So setting yourself up for that success and stacking that protein in. I know I do that, whether it's to throw a scoop of, say, protein powder into my oatmeal and still have my eggs, or chop up some chicken and put that in there, mix the eggs with the egg whites. That's something else, just really shoring up that protein. And then if you can get fiber in there, you're going to start the day with that blood glucose level at a good manageable level, and you're not going to be doing that roller coaster. And then I like to think of bookending too, like how we end our day. What does that meal look like? Because I feel like how we begin and how we end is critical.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And then, yes, absolutely. So that's so true because at the end of the day, and this is why it's so important to start the day also with the breakfast that we're talking about. This all, everything I'm sharing, it fits this framework that I created called the fat burning food framework, where when you're actually adding more protein, you're adding more fruit that's low sugar or vegetables, and then you're having healthy carbs or healthy fats. That's a fat burning food framework because you're getting your metabolism high, you're staying full, you're eating enough, and your body starts to actually burn fat. And you don't have to think of a complicated meal plan or, look up recipes. You just have to make sure these foods are on your plate. So, for dinner, the formula for fat burning is to have about 40 to 50% of your plate protein also, then have vegetables as 40 to 50% of your plate, and then make sure you have one serving of healthy fats in your dinner. And the reason for this is because fats are things that we don't have to burn them off. Like if we're eating carbs and we don't burn them off, they will turn to fat. That's why it's nice to have carbs during the daytime. But if you have healthy carbs at night, sometimes it's okay. It depends what your lifestyle is. If you're working out a lot, it might be a good idea for you. But having a healthy fats keep us satiated and full all through the night. And this is especially important in perimenopause and menopause when our sleeping patterns are so disrupted. A lot of it, of course, is due to hormones, but a lot of it is because our blood sugar is fluctuating and is very low because we are more insulin resistant. And so we want to make sure that we maintain our blood sugar all night and have a really great sleep. And the best way to do that is to keep our blood sugar even. So versus eating carbs that can fluctuate it, if you're not actively building muscle, then it can cause this fluctuation. But if you're eating healthy fats, you just keep your blood sugar even. You're staying full all the way until you wake up in the morning. So, what that looks like is something like so easy. So you just understand what are the proteins that are also fats. This is such an easy way to do it. So for example, chicken thighs, those are fatty meats. And those are great to have in the evening. Also, salmon is a fatty fish. Those are some examples. Beef is another example. Tofu is actually fatty in a good way. These are all good fats when you're eating the right amount. And so you have, one of those examples that I mentioned, or you could also have hemp seeds if you are vegan or you don't want to eat tofu. And then on the side, you have some vegetables that you either roast or steam or saute in some, kind of a lower oil or cooking spray, because you can get your healthy fats from something else that we'll talk about that will keep you full. So you're having some vegetables. Add some flavorful spices onto those vegetables like cumin and coriander. Those create decrease in water retention and decrease in bloating. And they also help with our belly fat, decrease our belly fat. Cumin has been shown to do that. So adding that on our vegetables with a little bit of salt and pepper, it makes it taste good. And we want our vegetables to taste good, so we eat more of them. And then having a healthy fat, like it's already in the chicken thighs, but if you're eating a leaner meat at night, like chicken breast or a white fish or shrimp, then you can add a healthy fat. And those are things like half an avocado or a tablespoon of coconut oil that you add on top of your food so that you're actually consuming it. And it's not only being cooked in it and going into the pan a bit. Nuts, seeds, or we've just any other thing that's fatty, that's going to keep you satiated. And what's really important about everything we've talked about is what we did at breakfast actually impacts what we're doing at night. Because I have seen that women that are having late night cravings, which are so common to have, they're not eating enough at their breakfast and their lunch. And so it's creeping up, and our body still needs calories like we were talking about. So it's going to start asking for it at night when we're feeling like we are kind of tired and we're looking for that time for self-care for ourselves. And it's easier to just say, oh my God, I don't have enough energy to fight myself. Like I just want to eat that ice cream or peanut butter or whatever may be in the cabinet. So if you ate the right breakfast and then you had lunch and you had carbs in your lunch as well, because our body also needs carbs, and you're having the right dinner, then you would feel very satisfied and you're going to be able to go to sleep and say, I'm good. Like my body is good. I'm ready to go to sleep now and have an amazing sleep as well. So,
Mm, hitting on those carbs, I love it. And you kind of segued into something that's been on my mind because I'm seeing a lot of it. Is okay, we know protein. That's kind of almost to me the easiest macronutrient to go, okay, that's pretty steady. It's not really changing on me. I need a certain amount of protein to build and maintain muscle and be healthy. But that little dance with carbs and fats that goes on all day long,
mhm.
what I see is oftentimes like women will come to me and they think, I'm overdoing the carbs. It's the carbs. It's the carbs. And then I start looking at what they're eating, their food log or whatever, however they're tracking. And I'll see, no, it's way too many of the healthy fats because they're afraid of the carbs. So they got their fat count really, really high. Can you talk about that a little bit? That how can they manage that? Because fats are they're wonderful. Our brain needs it, our hormones need it, but they're very calorically dense.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited that you're bringing this up and that you have said that this is what you're seeing too, because, the number one reason I see that women are not losing weight, the number one reason is they're not eating enough. So we already talked about that. They're not eating enough, and it's actually causing women to stay stuck and in some situations gain weight. Okay. So that's number one. The number two reason is that by mistake, women are eating too much fat because they're trying to be healthy, but are not aware of how calorically dense fat is. And so this is absolutely true. I see this all the time. And if you're listening, it's really important to just take a look at the fat that you're eating. We want you to eat enough, but that's the one area where it's important to just be aware, and you might need to pull back a little bit and then add on some other things instead. So I have an easy formula that I use for how to know that you're eating enough fat in a day and not overdoing it. And that's just fat 3 times a day. That's what I say, fat 3 times a day. So ideally and each fat serving is around 14 grams of fat. And that's what's like commonly known. If you look at the back of any nuts bag or any seeds or anything like that, you'll see that it'll always say serving size is 14 grams of fat. So you want to do that approximately 3 times a day. Of course, everybody has a different, if you're looking at your own macros and you're measuring to that, it can fluctuate, but in general, it is within that amount, plus or minus 10 grams or so, depending on you. But this is a great place to get started. So what that means is I really recommend starting your day with one serving of healthy fat. So one serving or 14 grams is in 2 eggs. You're getting about two. If you have 2 eggs, you're almost getting 14 grams. If you have half an avocado in the morning, half an avocado is about 14 grams. And that's why I recommend we don't have a full avocado. It's like just being aware half an avocado is enough. You're getting what you need. And then also having it at dinner. So I talked about some very specific examples of how to add it at dinner, and then also adding it either into your lunch if you want, or having a snack of like one serving of nuts. Maybe you do 2 tablespoons of peanut butter with an apple, which is a really popular snack. Something around that way, then that's a really great gauge to say, okay, I'm getting a good amount of fats, but I'm not overdoing it. And I would recommend that women take a look at this because fats are marketed as healthy, and they are healthy. But it's just about understanding the portion sizes for fats is very important to know, and to use it as a complement. But it's like if you eat too much of it, it's going to get you out of balance. You just want to eat the right amount of it.
Mm, so good. Yeah, that was something I really learned a lot through the bodybuilding world was how to manage those carbs and fats because yeah, you need those carbohydrates. I remember this is about 8 years ago. I did a national show and the coach at the time had me do a keto style of prep. Now, it wasn't your traditional keto where it's like bacon and all this stuff. It was a clean keto, still high protein, absolutely no carbs. And this was my experience. I looked great in the beginning, and then there was this tipping point and I looked soft, like you couldn't see any of my muscle on stage. And then coming off of that, I had thyroid problems.
Uh-huh.
And I've had to go on a thyroid compound to bring that
Oh.
functioning back up. And that's when I learned, oh, if you completely cut out carbohydrates, you can get into a little bit of trouble.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. And so that's that. Oh, wow. So, I mean, because so many women, me included, I also did a low carb, like looking at, okay, carbs is another diet, like cut down the carbs. But if we follow a low carb diet for a long period of time, especially when we're in perimenopause or menopause, our body needs those carbs to create, if you're in perimenopause, the hormones that it's working so hard to create. And then, in menopause to build muscle, we need carbs. So if we don't have those things and we're depriving our body of a major micronutrient, a major macronutrient. But it's just about having the right kinds of carbs. So that's more, I think, what should be taught, and what is actually working is what are the kinds of carbs that we can eat that are not creating that blood sugar up and down, that spike in that valley. What carbs are there carbs that can keep it even? And there's many carbs that can keep our blood sugar even. And that's really what we want to look more at is what is the quality of the food that I'm eating? So,
No, very important. And carbohydrates are tricky because you've kind of got this trending thought of, okay, don't have any grains. If you have autoimmune, this could make your autoimmune worse. And I've had women come to me, it's like, okay, I can eat a toothpick and water and that's it. What kind of healthy carbs? I mean, obviously there's fruits and vegetables, but what other types of carbs do you recommend?
yes. This was one of the major areas aside from getting off of sugar. What was really understanding what healthy carbs are, and then adding those to my day and replacing the unhealthy carbs that really helped me lose that 40 pounds. I lost it in 9 months after a whole entire life of struggle and sugar cravings and being obsessed with calories. But once I did these few things, everything shifted, and it was no longer a diet, it was a lifestyle. And so it's more about just being educated about what these things are. And so, healthy carbs, and I even like to call them now slimming carbs, because they actually, like, adding these carbs will help us slim down. Because our body needs some carbs. So what we want to look for is what I call fibrous, complex fibrous carbs. So this is even higher quality than complex carbs. This means that these carbs have fiber in them, so they're going to digest very slowly. When we eat them, we're not going to feel hungry 20 minutes later. It's going to stay in our blood system, and that means that it's not digesting as quickly. But we're getting so many benefits because we're also not hungry, so we're not overeating. So, for example, some of my favorite healthy carbs for those people that can eat it, which are many people, if you learn how to cook these the right way, are lentils and beans. So, lentils and beans, if either you purchase them already made, there's some really good brands out there, but you can also learn to cook them, and using ginger in your lentils. That a lot of times people feel like they have gas if they eat lentils or beans. But when you add ginger to the cooking process, like you chop up about an inch of ginger, and you just use that when you're cooking it, it actually gets rid of a lot of those gases, as well as soaking the lentils or beans for like 2 to 4 hours. So those two things really help if you're having any issues with that. But beans and lentils are extremely fibrous. So when you eat them, you feel full. they digest slowly. Your energy is so even for hours. You're not hungry. You don't even need a snack a lot of times in the mid afternoon if you eat this the right way, along with protein. So health, so beans and lentils are are really great. Having some high fiber bread is really good. For example, Ezekiel bread. For those people that aren't gluten free, because Ezekiel does have some gluten in it, but it's sprouted grain, so the way that it digests is much more slowly. It doesn't spike our blood sugar. So that, but also other breads like sourdough bread, rye bread, or if you want to have regular whole wheat bread looking for the high fiber, that's going to be very helpful because it's digesting more slowly. And then my favorite other healthy carbs are what I call, what I named slimming grains. And so these are for, if you can eat grains, some of these are actually considered a nut. But these are replacements to rice. So they have more, they're not causing that glycemic spike as much. So some of my favorites are millet, farro, couscous is another one, and bulgur. These are all grains that you can eat them just like rice, but you are not going to get that blood sugar spike, and you're also going to feel full for longer. Sometimes if we have rice on our plate, we eat it, and 20 minutes later, we're already hungry. And so these are just more nutrient dense foods, but we always want to combine our carbs. This is very important. We always want to combine our carbs with protein or with a healthy fat, because we already talked about how proteins and healthy fats keep us more satiated. And part of it is because it's digesting more slowly. Well, that's why carbs are, even if they're healthy carbs, they are going to digest more quickly than proteins or fats. But if you pair them together, and even better, eat the protein or the fat first and then add in the carb after, then what will happen is that our blood sugar will be lower and it will stay lower. It won't go up and down because you have enough of these different ingredients in your body that are helping to balance everything. And so if you're not able to eat a healthy carb, still following this timing formula will also really help you. But you will get more of a blood sugar spike, but it'll be less than it would than if you were eating a healthy carb. So those are some of my, favorite ones. And it's really important to have these carbs because I also see that when women skip their carbs, that's when their late night cravings come up as well. It's actually doesn't seem like it's related because it doesn't, you don't track it back, but I just started noticing all of these patterns where women were getting late night cravings, and I was looking at what they were eating and they were skipping their carbs in the day because they were thinking they were being healthier, but it was like coming back like a punch at night. And it's hard to control ourselves at night. So we really want to get in front of that and add the right things during the day, and then choose a healthier option at night because you won't be so out of control by that time.
And we're more insulin resistant at night too. I mean, this is the time of day where we're generally not exercising, lifting weights, moving around. We're winding down, and we're just naturally more insulin resistant at night. So really having that plan in place. I love the order of eating the food. I actually got in that habit a couple of years ago when I wore a continuous glucose monitor and I tested it.
Uh-huh.
And kind of ate things in different orders and just kind of used myself as a guinea pig. And I found that if I did that protein and fiber first, my carb last, that I was in a better boat, so to speak.
Yep.
And I love that. And then also just the way, that you talk about the timing when you're eating the different fats. Can you speak about that a moment too? Okay, so you're having the fat in the evening, generally not the carb, and the carbs are earlier in the day. Is that how you feel is most effective?
Yes. So having your carbs at lunch is good, is really good. If you want to have it at breakfast, you can. Now, every person is different, so some people are gonna be able to eat more. It depends on where you're at in terms of your weight loss goals, and also depends on the kinds of workouts you're doing. So, what we're talking about here specifically is for women that are not necessarily lifting as part of their workouts. Once you start to add lifting in, which is an amazing and optimal thing to also do, but not everyone is there yet. So once you start doing that, you need more carbs. You need more carbs because you need carbs to build muscle. But we're specifically talking about now women who are looking to lose weight, who maybe are you're doing some exercise, but you're not lifting too heavy. You might be doing some things, but it's not like you're not actively looking at building muscle. So having your carbs, having healthy carbs in the afternoon is a really great idea, because then you have the day to burn them off, and they're not going to convert to fat, because carbs are going to burn more quickly. And the way that they're going to, if you're not burning them off by moving around, they will be stored as fat if you don't need that energy. So if you're using them in the day, but if you're also having the healthy carbs that I described, and then pairing it with protein and also pairing it with veggies, it's going to digest very slowly. So you're actually not going to have that fat storage, and you're going to feel so satisfied. It's like magic. It felt amazing when I was doing it. I couldn't believe that my scale was going down when I was feeling so full and satisfied all throughout the day. That's never how I used to have to lose weight. Um, and then during the morning, if you feel like having that carb, you can. It really depends on where you're at in your weight loss journey. Like if you're somebody that wants to lose the last 10 pounds, then we're going to need to really keep it at lunch mostly. But if you are somebody that has 40 pounds or 30 pounds or more to lose, you may need to have a little bit more carbs. It may be okay, completely okay for you, because it depends where you're at right now. But in general, the framework that I like to share is eat your carbs at lunch, have your fat in the morning, in the night, and then one time during a snack time. And then have protein and veggies, or protein and low sugar fruit at every single meal. So that's key. And then low sugar fruit is also key, because fruit is healthy, but it does have sugar if we use it in unlimited portions. If we're eating an apple by itself, or if we're eating mangoes, or if we're eating pineapple, and we're thinking it's healthy, it's not unhealthy. It's not bad for our body, but it's not supporting our weight loss if we are eating it alone without pairing it with something like peanut butter or a protein, and if we're eating it in too large portions. So there's two levers that we can use with fruit: pairing it, and also making sure that your portion size is appropriate for your body. So, have a small apple, or have like half a cup of berries. Have like a fourth a cup of pineapple, because it has a lot more sugar in it. So, and sometimes we can feel this. We can feel it. We can say, okay, I think that I'm good. I can feel it on my body now. I don't think I need any more. So it fruit is healthy, but it also has sugar. So it's just being aware of that, and knowing that we need to complement it with other foods.
That awareness is so important. I've thought about that a few times as you've been speaking today, is that you are teaching a lot of awareness. I do the same, where it's like, you're making these choices throughout the day. I know for myself, I don't want my fat to come from a bunch of oil I cook with. So
Uh-huh.
I manage that, and I don't want it to come from salad dressing. That doesn't excite me very much. So for me, I'm wanting a little nut butter, in the afternoon, spread across something like, some celery or an apple, like you said. And I'm not wanting it to be these added kind of sneaky fats in there. And then being mindful with the fruit, because fruit it's one of those things. Yes, it's healthy, but I do see women overdo that quite a bit, because they'll sit down with a big fruit bowl, and then there's nothing with that fruit bowl, just straight
Yes.
on.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so true. I look forward also to my like nut butter that I get to have, because it's my snack, and I'm like looking forward to it. But and it's fine for me to eat it. It's like absolutely fine for me to have a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of it, because I know that it fits into my day. But otherwise, it's could be the fats are sneaking in, just like you said, like with dressing. I mean, but you can also get a lower fat dressing, and it can feel good. Or you can just use like a salsa or a balsamic vinegar. And you can also use creamier vegetables and have a very satiating, delicious salad. And you get to also have that nut butter. So these things actually become really exciting. Like it can be really tasty once you start knowing the choices to make. And when you start seeing the results on the scale and in your waist size, because your waist size starts shrinking, you just want to keep doing this because like the results will speak for themselves, that you feel so good, you feel so full, and you are shrinking in all the ways that you want to shrink, the good ways, the positive ways.
Mm. Yeah, that was something I learned too from competing was how much food I was able to eat and how filling, especially in the beginning. I was like, oh, I can't eat all this food. I can't eat all this protein. And I hear that from my clients too.
Uh-huh.
But then, when you're weight training, your resistance training, there is a tipping point where your body starts to, I think, begin to even crave more protein and more of the things that's going to nourish and support that. But I love that emphasis on protein. It's thermogenic. It's burning energy to break down, and that thermogenic quality of food is something that's not often talked about.
Hmm.
You eat that Snickers bar, yeah, it's delicious, and then it's gone, and there's really no, you know what I mean. There's no thermogenic quality to that. It's not filling, and you're hungry right afterwards. So important. I love it. I want to be respectful of your time, Nagina. As we start to wrap up, couple questions for you. Was there anything that we didn't touch on that you think will be valuable for the listeners to know? And how can they reach you, work with you, learn more about you?
Oh, well, thank you so much. Well, I am, I think we talked about so many things. In fact, I would just urge people who are listening to go back and listen to this again because we shared so much and this really works. And it's really just about, it's sometimes feels like there's no gimmick here. It's all about just learning how to eat in the right way. And if you learn this, you will change your lifestyle. Like your life will feel so energized. Your body fat will be at a great place. You'll be ready to take the next phase of fitness on, and or add to your life, in whatever way, wherever you're at. So really just following these principles is going to make a big difference. And so I'm actually going to be teaching more about this. I'm going to be giving more examples of what to eat, of how to create a metabolism boosting morning routine, more about the fat burning food framework, and an upcoming live 5-day metabolism boost for midlife women that I'm having. It's all virtual. And I'm going to be teaching live for free every day for 5 days and really breaking down exactly what to eat for breakfast, depending on, your variety of preferences, whether you're vegetarian, if you don't have time in the morning, if you do have time, if you're intermittent fasting. I share all these different options. And then I also have an entire day on how to get off sugar without feeling tired or restricted.
Oh,
And so that's going to be huge, where I share more about the timings and combinations of foods and the portions, and it's really, really just mind blowing. So that's gonna be coming up, and we're gonna put the link down below. It's called the 5-day metabolism boost for midlife women, and then you can also find me on my website masalabody.com. And I have a free cheat sheet called the Sweet Spice Cheat Sheet. And so I will provide that as well, which talks more about the sweet spice, how to use it in your day, and how to add like 5 easy no cook ways to add it. And then I'm also on Instagram at Masala Body. So those are a few ways, but I'd love to absolutely see you at the 5-day metabolism boost, because that is where I'm going to be breaking things down even more. And it's just very inspiring and fun. We have a lot of fun.
I encourage the listeners, or if you're watching this on YouTube, definitely check it out. That's a great value. I think even just the sugar alone, I wished I'd had something like that, because I told you I would just white knuckled it, and it wasn't fun at all. It was very
Mhm.
difficult. So you've shared so much value today. I mean, I got hung up on the ginger for the I had never heard that. So
Oh, yes.
something I always do, and I tell my clients, soak, don't just, throw them in the pan. And so the ginger trick is great. I'm definitely gonna be trying.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and that comes from, I mean, I have a background, I'm Indian, and so I grew up eating lentils. Like that was something that was like part of my background. It was just something that we ate all the time, and I learned to make it like that. And then my mom told me the reason we're adding ginger is to cut the gas, and then that's why we soak it. And so I realized it, but I'd always been doing it like that. So yeah, it works, and it comes from centuries, so yes.
And all the spices and the spices you can have for regulating blood sugar, and then also to help with belly fat, because that's a big pain point for us women. I think past, especially past 45. So
Yes.
so appreciate you sharing your wisdom, Nagina. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Carol.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.